Everyone for coming. It's Friday afternoon. It's the last session of a 2-day conference, and you decide to come to a talk about preventing burnout. So that's either a really good thing or a really bad thing. But either way, I appreciate it, and I hope you get something from this talk. So this is Preventing Burnout here at Design for Drupal 2019. This conference, not this year, but is actually the first conference I ever gave a talk on anything technical, and so I always love coming to speak at Design for Drupal. It means a lot to have the opportunity to do so. So before we get into the topic of burnout, a little bit about myself. My name is Michael Miles. I am from the Boston area. I've been working with Drupal for just over a decade now. I do a lot when it comes to Drupal, from module development, theme building, website building, technical architecture is what I do mainly. I help lead the Boston Drupal meetup, which meets the first Tuesday of every month. Leslie did a great job during the opening remarks both days to promote that. I really appreciate that. So if you're in the Boston area and you want to be involved in Drupal, you should come to the meetups. You can find us on meetup.com or org, whatever the website is. What else do I do in terms of Drupal? I am one of the co-organizers of the New England Drupal Conference, New England Drupal Camp, which is happening in November. So you check that out at nedcamp.org. And then I just like being part of this community. So during the day, I am the VP of Technology for a digital marketing agency called Genuine. Our headquarters are here in Boston. We also have offices in San Francisco, New York, and Chicago. Genuine is not a Drupal shop. We are a full-service digital agency, which means we do video, digital strategy, UX, design, and development in a number of different technologies, Drupal being one of them. It's one that, when I was a developer, that's what I focused on. It's a lot of different things. At night, I have a podcast called Developing Up, which is focused on the non-technical side of being a developer. So anything you need to know about having a career in development, but that's not about writing code, because as I like to say on the podcast, a career in development is about more than the code you write. So we talk about things such as how to work on a team, how to set goals, how to prevent burnout, topics such as that. In Season 3 right now, episodes are released the second Tuesday of every month, so check it out. The next topic is on public speaking, very appropriate, and how that can be a benefit. So that's developingup.com. If you want to know any more about me, I'm all over the internet at MikeMiles86. If you see that username somewhere and you agree with that person said, then it was me. Otherwise, it's somebody else. I think I have the website MikeMiles86.com too, I think. Maybe not. All right, preventing burnout. What we're going to talk about today is, well, first let me ask around, how many people here have heard of the term burnout before? Please raise your hand. All right, 100% of the room. That's not a surprise. It's a very prevalent thing, especially in our industry, but in a lot of industries. So I want to talk about what it is and why it's bad. I think it's easy for us to know that it's bad and it has a bad connotation, but exactly what's bad about it and how it negatively affects everyone in this room, how it negatively affects teams, how it negatively affects individuals. I'm going to talk about the actual different types of burnout that there are, because it's not just one thing, it's many different types of things. And there are 3 main types of burnout that I'm going to talk about today, and for each one I'm going to discuss the causes of it, some of the root causes, some of the ways you can treat it when you're noticing it's happening to yourself or to others, and then ways you can prevent it, methodologies you can put in place for yourself and your teams just to keep everybody happy and healthy. Now, to understand why burnout is bad and what it does to somebody, there are 4 attributes I think we see happen when somebody gets burned out, especially developers. The first is a sense of dread. When you're feeling burned out, you dread coming to work. Every day is a Monday. You wake up, you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to get ready, you don't want to do that commute, whatever it is, and you go into the office or you go to your desk, you go to your coffee shop if you're a remote worker, and you don't want to engage with anybody, you don't want to do your work, you don't want to produce anything, and you hate what you're doing, and that's a bad thing, because everybody who's a developer or anybody who does what they love, you're doing it because you love it, because you want to solve problems, you want to build something cool. If you're build UX, you're a designer, you want to produce something that looks amazing, that works well. And if you dread doing your job, you can't do that well. Someone who's burned out tends to be exhausted. This is at the end of the day you're waiting for that, 5 o'clock to show up on the clock, you check out, you get home as fast as you can, you collapse into a heap. You don't want to do anything else. You're mentally or physically exhausted. And the problem with this is that your life has a lot of other things in it that you want to take care of, but if you are burned out at your job or things related to your job, you just can't deal with anything else. It takes away that energy that allows you to do that. So you're exhausted about the work you're doing, about how your life is going, how everything's working. Someone who's burned out is annoyed. This could be every little comment that comes back on a pull request, every little tweak that a client asks you to make, every little time someone says, can we put a lens flare here? You're like, oh, it's so annoying. You just can't deal with the criticism. Sometimes that's valid, but other times it's not. There are times when you need to be able to take that feedback and work on and improve things. But if you're burned out, everything just seems like so nitpicky and it riles you up and you can't deal with it appropriately, and that's a bad thing. And finally, someone who is burned out, it can seem like everything you're doing is just a daze. You're dazed. So you're coming in, pushing buttons, making the right lights, turn the right colors on the right part of the screen. You're checking out, repeat, recycle, repeat, recycle. You're not really making progress. You feel like you're not doing anything beneficial, worthwhile. Just it's the same thing over and over and over again. And that is bad because, again, that lowers how great you feel about what you're doing. It lowers your engagement in what you're doing. And it's going to prevent you from doing the best that you can do. The worst thing about burnout, especially in the development community, is, and this is going to be a little morbid, but DEAD, it produces dead developers, dead designers, dead UX people. It's really, it's morbid. But I say that because it prevents you from being your best, from doing your best, from being as engaged as you can be for making something that's amazing that will change the world. How many people here want to do something amazing? I want to build something amazing. All right, just about all the hands. That's great. And I hope you can do that. If you're burned out, you can't do that. And the problem also with that is if you become burned out, it doesn't just affect you, it affects those around you. The reason for this is because burnout has a domino effect. If you're burned out, you can't handle everything you're supposed to be handling. You can't do everything you're capable of doing. And either consciously or not, those that you work with are going to take on those burdens. Your work still has to get done. There's still that deadline. That client is still expecting that deliverable. The team's going to rally and make up for it. So all of a sudden, the people in your immediate circle are going to have extra burdens placed on them. They're at a higher increase for burning out. They burn out. The people around them take over. And so before you know it, your whole team is burned out. Your whole company is burned out. Your whole open source community is burned out. And you can't produce what you want. You can't represent the best version of yourself. And neither can your team. Now, there are 3 different types of burnout that I'm going to focus on today. These are the 3 types that I've actually experienced myself in my history as a developer. 3 different types that I've read about and are well known. For each one, again, what I'm going to talk about are some of the causes, the root causes of them, and explain those. Some of the ways you can treat it when you're noticing it's happening. Just like any burn, as soon as you notice it's happening, you want to soothe it. And then, most importantly, how to prevent it from happening in the first place, or at least delay it from happening, so that everybody can be as productive and engaging and happy about what they're doing and build something amazing. Now, the first type of burnout is called worn out burnout. This is the classic type. This is what we all consider burnout when we hear it. This is when you have too much to do and too little time to do it. Now, with this burnout, it's mainly caused by outside influences, things beyond your control. But the root of that, I think, comes from a sense of disrespect. So this could be, you are already working those 45 hours, trying to get those tight deadlines in, and your manager comes to you and says, hey, this client had this last minute request. I already told them that we could get it done. It's Friday afternoon. You need it done by Monday. That sucks. It's a bunch of extra work for you to do that you can't control, that you're being told you have to do. And it's disrespectful to you as an individual, to you as a professional managing your time. That leads to worn out burnout. There's a disrespect in terms of work-life balance, even with that similar situation, that you're expected to work the weekend when it's maybe not an emergency, it's something that could wait till Monday, but you're not given the freedom to discuss it or have a say in it. They're treating you as a child. There's disrespect in terms of if you work in client-based work as I do, completing something and moving immediately to the next problem and not getting any recognition or sharing in the success of the work you just did. So it could be, great, we launched this project on time, it was a tight deadline, but we met our budgets, we met our goals, the client's happy, move on to the next one, just get back to work. You don't take time to breathe and revel in your accomplishments. That's disrespectful to the hard work and time that you put in or your team put in. And that leads to burnout when people don't get that. The way you can treat burnout is with encouragement. Now, this isn't, again, the treatment doesn't solve the problem, but it soothes the problem. So if you are feeling you're getting too much thrown on you, you're being disrespected, or if you see that for your team, the first thing you can do is offer encouragement. For yourself, internally, not that you're going to encourage yourself to be like, yeah, I can work all weekend to get this done, to deliver it on Monday. I mean, that's not healthy behavior. But you can encourage yourself to say, I've ran into problems before where I wasn't sure how I was going to solve the deadline. I know I can figure out a solution here, whether that's talking to my teammates and working out a plan, talk to the client, talk to my manager. You encourage yourself that you can come up with a plan to solve it. Encouragement is all about putting out positive vibes for yourself and your team. So when the client is changing those making last-minute scope changes, you can say to your team, hey, we've had these monkey wrenches thrown in our projects before. We figured out a solution to it. We did it together. I know we can do it again. I know everybody in this room has the capabilities to come up with some complex solutions. We can do it, right? It's all about making people feel better about the situation, not falsely, but recalling previous times that you felt good about something, and that helps motivate people. Treatments only last so long, but if you put that encouragement in place, that gets people in a good mindset to then work out a plan and develop a solution and hopefully ease out of the problem. The way you prevent burnout in the first place, though, is teamwork. That's the number one thing you can do. It all comes down to, it's too much work being put on one person outside of their control. So if you have a team of individuals, you want to make sure you're balancing the workload. If you know for yourself, your manager comes to you and says, we need this all done, it's Friday afternoon, we need it done by Monday, but you have your daughter's dance recital over the weekend or something. Raising your hand and saying, hey, I know we need to get this done. Can we talk to the rest of the team and figure out how we can split this work up? I can maybe work part of the, Saturday night if someone else can take Saturday during the day and work on the first half of this problem. It's spreading out the workload to make sure not too much is put on one person. Another good way to prevent burnout and these problems from repeatedly happening and using teamwork is having retrospectives. Retrospective meeting is where you get together and discuss what's gone well, what's not going well, and how you're going to improve going forward. I like having retrospectives in many different ways. If you work in an agile fashion, using sprints at the end of a sprint is a great way to have a great time to have a retrospective and talk about what went well over the past 2 or 3 weeks. How can we improve things? And including your clients in that too, if you do client-based work, so that they're part of the conversation. Having a retrospective at the end of a project with your department or the departments involved to say what went well in this project, in this engagement, what didn't go well, how we can improve it on the next project that we're going to do next. That retrospective also gives you time to say what went well and highlighting individuals to sharing those accomplishments, like give out respect. Having a retrospective at the end of the year or the quarter for your company as a whole. I do this with my department actually. At the end of December last year, we all got together, we had a big long meeting, we talked about what we did well as a department for the year, what didn't go well, and what we were going to do for 2019 to get better. All right, the next type of burnout is frenetic burnout. Where burnout comes from outside influences, frenetic burnout comes from within. This is when you just take on more and more and more and more and more. More work than any one individual should be expected to handle. How many people here have heard of the term imposter syndrome? Raise your hand. All right, the whole room. Again, that's a good thing, but a bad thing. I think the root cause of frenetic burnout comes from a sense of mistrust, and this can be mistrust with yourself or mistrust with others. So the mistrust with yourself is imposter syndrome, right? That feeling of where you are, the work you're doing, the responsibilities you're given, you're not supposed to have those. You're not good enough to have that, to take those challenges on, where in fact you actually are. You feel like you only are there because of dumb luck or circumstance. So you mistrust your capabilities. And the way some people deal with this, and I've seen this happen, and I've done this myself, is they bury themselves in responsibilities. So if you are afraid that you're an imposter of where you are and what you're supposed to be doing, you try to take on more tasks. Be like, well, the more I do, the more I'm proving myself. But you end up taking on more than you can handle, and that's a detriment because you're not going to be able to do everything, and things are going to go downhill. Things aren't going to get done, and things are going to go badly, and you're going to frenetically burn out. There's a sense of mistrust in others. I've seen this happen with people who are new to being lead designers, lead UX people, lead developers on a project. First time you're put in that position, or if you're very knowledgeable in a certain area, you may mistrust your team's ability to take on other tasks. So you could say, Andy was going to be assigned the commerce part, but he hasn't really done that before. I should just do it myself. I'll give him something else to do. Or, Sarah is supposed to be take on the UX of the landing page, but she hasn't really handled doing a whole page by herself before. I'll take that on and I'll do it. Like, you're not trusting that your people on your team can rise to the challenge. You're robbing them of that chance to do that, obviously discussing with them, spreading out the workload. And in doing so, you're taking on these responsibilities when maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe you should be focused on the bigger picture or being available to help them and encourage them. So mistrust is the biggest cause of frenetic burnout, people taking on more challenges than they can handle. The way to treat this is to build a plan. Now, if you find yourself frenetically burned out, if all of a sudden one day you wake up, you feel dread going into the office, and you dread because you look at your to-do list and you're like, oh man, I have these 50 things I'm supposed to be doing by the end of the week. I can't do that at all. Develop a plan. Prioritize everything on your list. Write out a list of everything you're supposed to be doing and prioritize it. Everything you should be able to give a priority level, whatever method you want to do. I like to use the numbers 0 through 4 because I'm a developer, so I start with 0. 0 is the highest priority. Anything that's a low priority, get rid of it. And by get rid of it, I don't mean throw it away and ignore it. I mean figure out a plan for someone else to do it or for it to be done at a later date so that you can focus on the highest priority items. So if you are a team of one and you have a lot you have to do because you've made a lot of commitments, what you could do is prioritize all your tasks, figure out what's the most important things you have to focus on, and for everything else, pick a calendar date of when you can push those off to. That could involve a discussion with your client about a phase 2 or a phase 3. But that allows you to focus on what you need to do, and all of a sudden that burden is lifted off your shoulders. You're not looking at this huge laundry list of things, you're focused on the things you know you need to do. But again, you can develop a plan with your team, throw up that laundry list of items in front of your team, be like, hey, this is all I'm supposed to be doing. I recognize I can't handle all this, and I'm stressing out about it. Can any of you help me out? Can we work out a solution? And most of the time, your team should step up and help you out or figure out a plan or communication method. Now, the way to prevent frenetic burnout is to learn how to say no, which is the hardest word to say in the development community. I think we all like to believe, whether we have imposter syndrome or not, we all like to believe that we can take on any challenge. So sure, give me that scope change. I can handle it. That's not going to be that hard. I can do that. That leads to frenetic burnout. Learning how to say no allows you to focus on what you need to focus on and set those priorities and those limits. So you can say, and this is not just saying, no, we're not going to do that. This is saying, like, hey, you want that scope change on Friday afternoon? You know what? We can't do that right now because the team's been working so hard and focused on these other tasks this week. Let's regroup on Monday and figure out where we can fit this in, what we have to prioritize to fit into the schedule. So it's learning how to say no so that you can build a plan around those solutions. You can also do this to help others who you may notice are taking on more challenge than you think they can handle. I see this happen with junior developers who may want to prove themselves, not necessarily out of imposter syndrome, but just because they want to prove their worth. So they take on a lot of stuff. And so they're the ones who project managers can come over to and be like, hey, John, can you take this task on? And they're going to say yes. If you know their plate is full already, you can step in and be like, hey, actually, John's really busy on this thing right now. Can I talk to you? Maybe we can figure out, and I can help you deliver a solution or talk to the client. So stepping in for others and helping them, prevent them from being frenetically burned out. All right, the third version of burnout is under-challenged burnout. This is something that I think gets overlooked and forgotten about a lot and not even considered as a type of burnout. But this is when you are just so bored with what you're doing. Maybe it's that 50th time you're building a brochureware website for a client, you're styling it out, and you're building the same UX. It's caused by not having challenges, and the problem with not having challenges is that those are what push you to get better. Those are what push you to improve, to grow and stretch your abilities. Where if you don't have any challenges, you can stagnate, you can get bored with what you're doing, and then you can fizzle out of a career you may love. The root cause of this, I say, is emptiness. This is because the work you're doing for some reason or another is not fulfilling to you. Again, this could be that it's the 50th time you're doing something, the same thing. It could be maybe the type of work you're doing you're not personally motivated for, you're not involved in. It's not something that you care to work on that or that you like. A sense of emptiness in terms of external forces, again, being someone who works on client-based work, I know that there are seasonal dips. There are times when clients have budget and times when they don't. When they don't have budget, it can be a struggle to make sure everybody on the team is engaged because people don't have stuff to work on. They have to fall back on just that maintenance work that everybody loves to do. There could be a sense of emptiness in terms of loftier things and more abstract things like your career and where you want to go. I think it's hard for a lot of people to sit there and think about, that interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? A lot of people are like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm interested in. I don't really know what I want to do. I just know what I can do right now. And that sense of unknowing where you want to go prevents people from taking a step in any direction. So they stay with where they are. And they build up, they max out their capabilities, and then they become under-challenged and they fizzle out. How you treat under-challenged burnout when you're noticed you're bored at work, or maybe your coworkers are lethargic with what they're doing, is take control of the situation. There's a phrase out there that we control 50% of everything the world throws at us. Not that you can control every situation, but you can control how you react to it. So if you are facing that brochureware website for the 50th time, take control of the situation. Do you have to do it the same way? Do you have to use the same tools, the same methods? Can you try something different? Can you use a different, app? You've heard people use Sketch. Can you try that if you've never done that before? If you're a developer and you're building a website, a Drupal website, do you have to use paragraphs? Could you try Layout Builder? That's been a big conversation this conference. Could you try doing something like in a headless fashion? Could you take a different stylistic approach to the design and try just making little tweaks? Take control of the situation, try something different. If you're under challenged because you're doing the same thing over and over, you're put in the same role on every project, take control by asking for a different type of work. You go to your manager and be like, hey, I know how to do this part of it. I can do this in my sleep. It's not going to take me all the time. Can I try something else? Is there another role I can play on this project just to give it a shot? Is there anyone else who needs support? Maybe if you're a front-end developer, a themer in Drupal, but you know the theme is not going to be challenging on this project, ask if you can take on some of the back-end building, some of the site building. Maybe it's not something you're really used to, but something you're kind of familiar with and you want to take on. And that helps distribute the work as well. You can also take control by finding opportunities yourself. I think this comes into play, again, being client-facing, those seasonal dips of work where it's just there's not as much work to go around. Finding other opportunities of things you can do. Stuff that's completely outside your normal work role. So it could be, I know all about building websites. I don't know anything about how we pitch to clients. I don't know anything about how we recognize revenue. I don't know anything about how we resource people. Can I help in any of those areas, or just learn about it? Take control of the situation that way. Now, the way you prevent under-challenge burnout is by setting goals. And every time I talk to my team about setting goals, I get a lot of eye rolls. So professional goals, people don't like to, not many people love them as much as I do, but they are the way to make sure you're never under-challenged. If you set a goal for yourself, then every day when you wake up, you can say to yourself, what is the one thing I'm going to do today to progress on my goal? So if you go into your work and you have some availability, you're under challenged, you can say, what can I do in this project? What can I do in this hour just to take one small step towards this goal that I want to achieve? The benefit of having professional goals also is not about reaching them. Goals are a journey, they're not a destination. So using retrospectives for yourself, if after, say, like a 6-month period, you have a goal that you're trying to reach, a professional goal, you retrospect, have you made any progress towards that goal? If you have, that's great. You should celebrate yourself and then think about what are the next steps you're going to do to continue progress in that goal. But if you haven't made any progress towards a goal, that's also great. The reason for that is then you can reflect and be like, I haven't made any improvements towards this direction. Why is that? What have I been focused on? What am I actually excited about? Where am I actually trying to improve myself? Let me change my goal and work towards that instead. There's always something you can find to challenge yourself on if you set professional goals. That's the one way you can prevent under-challenge burnout. All right, now I want to talk about burnout in general. I've talked about the 3 types, some different causes, different treatments, but we can generalize burnout. I think no matter what type it is, there are some general things that you can recognize as a cause, as a way to treat it, and as a way to prevent it. The number one cause of burnout is stress. When you are worn out, frenetically burned out, or under-challenged, all those problems come from being stressed out, right? You're stressed because someone gave you too much to do. You're stressed because you took too much on. You're stressed because you don't have enough to do and no way to make improvements. Now, stress isn't always a bad thing. Stress can be a good motivator, but it's when you have too much stress and you're unbalanced with the stress that you have that it causes burnout in general. So when you start to notice you're stressed out at work, in your job, in your life, take a step to reflect, am I burned out for some reason? Can I figure out which version I'm burned out on and how I can start treating it? If you are just burned out, you're feeling a lot of stress, reboot, just like you would do to your phone or your computer when it's messing up. Reboot it. Reboot yourself. This could be as simple as getting up from your desk, walking around the block, grabbing a coffee, and coming back to analyze the problem. Like, it's separating yourself from the situation. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I do this with her all the time. When she is frustrated and she can't tell me why, and she is crying, we get up and we move to a different location. We reboot. Moving her to a different location reboots her system because it's a different environment, and we can figure out what's going on. We can do the same for ourselves. You may have to take a longer time to do this. So this could be taking a mental health day. Mental health is very important for yourself. So if you're waking up with that sense of dread or you're exhausted after weeks of work, just be like, I'm just going to take a day for myself. Call in sick. Mental health. I've checked with my HR person. Mental health is a valid sick day use. So take that day off just to do nothing and, again, reboot your system. Plan a vacation. Figure out a hobby that you can focus on. Just remove yourself from the situation in a positive way so that you can come back to it. But the way you prevent any type of burnout is learning how to ask for help. Just like saying no is a hard thing to learn how to do, asking for help is a hard thing to do. I think especially in the world of development, asking for help, we fear that kind of that imposter syndrome. If we ask for help, that means we don't know what we're doing. People are going to see us as weak. People are going to think we don't know how to be a developer, how to be a designer, how to be a UX person. People are going to think we're stupid. That's not the case. That's not something I've ever experienced. In my experience, when you ask for help, your team is your community is ready to jump in and help and support you. So learning how to ask for help prevents burnout, because in the first place, as soon as you know something's happening, you can say, I feel like I'm about to get too much work thrust on my shoulders. I need help figuring out how we're going to do all this in this time. I'm not just going to say yes to it. I need help figuring out this problem. Asking for help allows people to step in and help prevent the burnout. All right, so to recap, I have this nice little table here. Look at a valid use for tables. Burnout is bad because it prevents you from being your best. Everyone here tries to be their best. I would hope you try to be your best every day. And if you're burned out, you're not able to do that. Burnout has many forms and many causes. I've talked about 3 forms of it: worn out, frenetic, and under-challenged. They each have slightly different causes. The root cause of it is all stress. But I think, the symptoms of disrespect, of mistrust, and the sense of emptiness are all manifest themselves slightly differently. Just like you would a physical burn, treat burnout as soon as you recognize it's happening. So as soon as you think it's happening, have you heard the phrase where if you have to ask how much something is, it's too expensive? So if you have to ask yourself, am I burned out? Yes. The answer probably is yes. You're asking yourself a rhetorical question at that point. So start treating it, start encouraging yourself, building a plan, taking control, stepping away, and rebooting. And then work towards preventing burnout from happening by building healthy habits of working as a team, learning how to say no and turn down tasks in an appropriate way, set goals so you always have something to work on, and learn how to ask for help. So that's all I have on this. But this presentation, an annotated version of these slides, is available at bit.ly/d4dburn. There is some documents written, not that I wrote, but written by a lot more smarter people than I am, who can speak better. I have a link to it at bit.ly/dev/burn-types, where you can read all more in depth about the different types of burnout. There's a quiz you can take online on this website, mindfulnesstools.com, at dev/burn-test, where you can take it and it'll tell you, yeah, you're probably really frenetically burned out, or no, you're pretty good. So you can answer these questions and it'll give you a gauge. And like I mentioned, I do have a podcast developing up. The 3rd episode of season 1 was actually on how to treat prevent burnout. So if you want to listen to that, developingup.com/3. Please listen, please like, please subscribe. The more people know about it, the more it gets out there. With that, we do have some time for questions. Before that, I just want to say thank you for coming again. I know it's Friday afternoon, weekend before 4th of July weekend, so I really appreciate it. It's way more people than I thought would show up at my talk. So I'll ask for applause and then time for questions. Any questions?
What's the emergency number?
What's the emergency number? Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't know the song. Dear Sir or Madam. That's for anyone who doesn't know. That's this screenshot from a show called the IT Crowd. In this episode here, Moz, there's a fire in his office, and there's a brand new replacement number for 911, and it's like 17 digits long, and there's a song, and he's trying to remember it, and then he just goes and he writes an email about, there may be a fire, sorry to bother you. It's a British show, it's really funny, so you check it out. Good question. I don't know what the number is. Any other questions? Yes?
How do you recommend we approach our managers with this and make sure that this is kind of understood by them and kind of baked into our processes?
Yeah, so the question was, how do you approach your manager about this, make sure it's baked into your processes? It's a great question. One thing I would hope you would do, if you're not already doing it already, is have regular check-ins with your manager, so one-on-one meetings. If your manager isn't doing that for you, ask for it and start setting up a regular cadence, wherever works for you. The way you can do that is because those meetings are to set up, not about hey, how's that project going? It should be, how are you doing? What do you need? What's getting in the way of you doing your work? Whether you tell that to your manager or they actively are asking those questions. If you have a manager who's not interested in doing all that, I very caution you to try to figure out a way to move to a different manager or link them to this talk. So I think having regular check-ins with managers is a great way to build in these processes because it sets up that cadence of talking through these things so that you can catch it before it's happening. Because you may not recognize it in yourself if you're just talking to yourself in your head, but as soon as you have to explain how the situation is going to somebody else, you may be like, oh yeah, I might be burned out because what I'm telling you makes it sound like I am really stressed out, and I am. So I think the number one thing you do is set up regular meetings with your managers where it's just the two of you, whether it's go to get coffee or sit in a conference room or hop on a Skype call or whatever. That's what I recommend. I am a manager, and I do that with my developers. Andy Brown used to be one of my developers, so he can attest to that. Cool. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to Design for Drupal, the 11th one. Such a great conference. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday.